Hi everybody. I'm going to show you how to create masks in Photoshop today. There are probably a gazillion ways to create masks in Photoshop, but I'm going to show you my two favorite ways. Just as Halloween masks hide and protect the face, Photoshop masks hide and protect areas of an image. You use masks to isolate the parts that you want to change. And that's what makes them so powerful. For instance, let's say you do a photo shoot of a musician at a beach. Everything's great. You get back to the studio, the client is there looking at these fantastic images with you, and then the client says, oops, you know what? I don't really want the musician to be at the beach. I'd rather have the musician on a simpler background or maybe in a forest. And instead of losing your mind because you've just spent an entire day doing a photo shoot at the beach, you say no problem, because you know you have the mask tool in Photoshop that will allow you to eliminate the beach background and put another background there instead. So it's really important to know how to do masks. You can honestly be making a living doing masks if you're really good at it. There are a couple of key benefits to using masks. First of all, they are non-destructive. So even though it may look like we are erasing some of the pixels, we're not deleting them. We're hiding them. They are there still in the file. We can get them if we need them. We can reveal them if we need to. And secondly, I use masks a lot to save selections, because you might spend a lot of time selecting a very complex area of an image, and you want to save all that work, and you can do it in a mask. So there are a lot of other reasons why you want to use masks, but those are, to me, some of the most important ones. So let's get down to it. I'm going to show you these two of my favorite ways to create masks in Photoshop. So get yourself ready and we'll rock and roll in a minute. All right, so method number one to create a mask. You can use a combination of some of the selection tools in Photoshop, specifically the quick selection, the magic wand, and the lasso tools. So here we have one of my paintings. It has a very creative name. It's called Smiling Dog. And we're going to mask out the green and maybe even the black border, but specifically I want to get rid of the green to show a different background. So this is the original painting. I'm going to show you where we're going with this. So here is the same painting with the green background masked out to reveal a different color background. So I've got the green, and then I'm masking it out to get to the blue. Okay, so the first thing I like to do is make a copy. You can see I've done this already, but I'll show you what I'm talking about. So I choose that specific layer, and I go to this little hamburger menu, the drop down, where I can scroll to duplicate layer. Okay, and I'm just going to leave it at a pretty generic name. Okay, and I'll hide these other layers so that we're just working on the copy. Okay, so I start with the quick mask, the quick selection tool. It's over here in my tool chest, right here, the quick selection tool. Now if I click on this and hold my mouse down, you can see that within that one tool, I have the Magic Wand tool and the Quick Selection tool. So I'm going to start with the Quick Selection tool and then move toward the Magic Wand tool in a second. So my Quick Selection tool settings upstairs here will be a hardness of 100%, but I'm going to tone down the size of the brush a little bit to 32. Okay. Now, when I go to the image and just click once to begin the selection, you can see the dancing ants, and the tool automatically changes to the Add to Selection mode. So each time I select, it's adding to that selection. I'm going to be a little careful here, go a little conservatively. Okay, it's adding. Now I'm clicking, but you can also click and drag. Pretty sweet. Okay, now that's the point at which it starts to grab the black. If I want to keep the black, I want to go back one step. So Command Z will bring me back to this part right here. I'm going to be a little bit more conservative and just click. Continue clicking near his paw, and then I'm running into the same issue. So when this starts to happen on a regular basis, maybe I'll go to this green area and see what happens. Okay, that's good. How about this green area? It does have to think a little bit. Okay, now Command Z again to go back a previous step. Try it once more. Okay. Okay. So you can see you run up against this problem. So let's reduce the size of the brush. Maybe that will help. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Won't let me zoom in. All right, let me try this. Okay, so no matter the size of the brush, I'm still getting pixels added to the selection that I don't want. So now is the time when I switch tools to the Magic Wand tool. And make sure it's in the Add to Selection mode, okay? Not just the new selection, but add to the selection. Let's go inside here. Perfect. Perfect. Now I see some stray pixels, but we're going to fix that in a second. Right now, I'm pleased as punch with what I have selected here. If I had to use a third tool, it would be the Lasso tool. Okay, make sure again, Add to Selection is the mode that you're in. This pixel, I can see it's flashing, so I'm going to circle around it, and that's added to the selection. Great. Now, go to my Layers panel, down at the bottom, the Add Layer Mask button, and you can see it created a mask, but it masked out what was not selected. So this is the point at which you decide, oh, is it the selection that I want to mask, or is it the other stuff, the non-selected stuff? So I'm going to do Command C, okay? No problem, because what I want to mask out is, it's kind of opposite in your mind. You'd think you're all set, but you're actually masking out the dog instead of the background. So go to the Select menu and inverse the selection, okay? Then go back to the Layers panel and click on the button for Add Layer Mask. Perfect. Okay? And you're done. That's it. That's method number one. Now we do need to clean it up. I can see there's some funkiness there. So make sure in the Layers panel you've selected that thumbnail. That's the mask thumbnail, the layer mask thumbnail. Then use the eraser tool, which is right here. Okay. Now in Maskland in Photoshop, what is in the foreground, white, will, let's see what it does, and you'll know for sure. White adds to the mask, all right? Black subtracts. So you play around with it till you get it to be what you want it to be. Now this can be kind of a guessing game because you don't know exactly what the mask looks like. So I often go to my channels layer and I make the mask visible. So now I can see whatever's in purple is actually the mask. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. All this green needs to be masked out. So you refine it. I'm not going to do the whole thing. I just want you to get the idea of how to refine it. Now, also, the other thing I use is a Wacom tablet. I find that the stylus is a more comfortable way for me to create masks. It feels more like a pen than a mouse does. But this, you know, for this purpose, I think will be fine. I'm going to zoom out again and see what we're doing here. Go inside here. You see the residue. You can clean that up. So it's funny because it's using the eraser tool, but you're not actually erasing. You're simply adding to the mask. So that's what I'm doing here. And you can play with the hardness as well. I still have it at 100% hardness, but maybe you want to make it softer so the edges don't seem as severe. So right here, I've softened it a little bit. I'm not being super careful, am I? Oh, so that's when you switch to the black, then you subtract from the mask and you reveal more of the images. So it's sort of this yin-yang. Do I want to add to the mask or subtract to the mask? So that's method number one. Okay, so here's method number two, which is the select and mask workspace. I discovered this last year. I think it's a relatively new feature, but I can't be sure of that. But in any case, I discovered it last year when I had to mask out the background of an image where I had a person in front of a very busy brick wall. So I had to eliminate the background and put something much simpler there instead. So I'm going to show you how to do that with the Select and Mask workspace. And this is a picture of yours truly a few years back when I still had those wireframe glasses. So In this one, because it's a little bit more complex, the quick selection tool might be a little trickier to use. So the select and mask method offers more opportunities to do lovely things. So here is the original image without the mask, and here is the image with the mask. Okay, so once again, I'm going to copy the layer, duplicate the layer, and work on that copy. So select the layer that you want to have the mask on. Upstairs here in the main menu area, go to the Select drop-down menu, go all the way to Selected Mask, and you'll see we're entering that workspace. So right away, everything is masked. The red is an overlay view mode. I think the default for this, if I hadn't been working on this file, we would have been in the onion skin mode, which you can see it's really difficult to tell like what is the mask here. You can barely see it. You can increase that transparency if you want. Okay. So these view modes are really very, very useful. I like to use the overlay mode. And off to the left side, we have the brushes. So I think this top one is what we want. It's the quick selection tool once again. But unlike the first method where we were not in this workspace, but we just went directly into the quick selection brush tool, here the entire image is masked. You've got that red overlay. So basically what we're doing by selecting the sections of the image, we're basically peeling away the mask. Let me show you what I mean. So we'll start with the same settings that we used in the earlier method, 32. You can type it in there. I'll leave the hardness at 100. And you can see that it's already a plus sign, so I'm going to be adding to the selection immediately. And right away, you can see the difference here is that what you select is being revealed. So it's the metaphor is much clearer in this workspace. So this can be tricky because my white hair is hard to see up against that background. So I'm going to be very careful once again. See, if I do it too much, then that's not going to work either. So now I'm going to reduce the size of my brush, maybe to 10. Let's see how that works. It still doesn't work very well. So you get a feel for each tool as you go along. Now, I'm clearly having trouble, so I'm going to go to the regular brush tool, and 25 is my size right now. If I just use the brush, I'm going to increase the size. That's pretty straightforward right there. Okay. Now you might want to, after doing this for a little bit, go back to the quick selection tool and see if it works any better. Yeah, it does. So play around with your selections, and if you use the Option key, it will, right up here, I haven't actually clicked on that, but with my keyboard, I'm clicking the Option key and changing it to subtracting instead of adding. I'm releasing it to add again. Okay, it works really well on edges. And it kind of remembers areas that you've done already, so you can play around with it. Okay. Okay, so I've selected the face and my shoulders and shirt. Now I want to show you how to refine the edges. So I go to this really cool tool, the Refine Edge Brush tool, and I'll zoom in on those edges. I've intentionally mucked them up so you can see how to fix it. I want to go on the edge, and Photoshop will understand, hopefully, that you want to mask the edge. Okay, so you can see there's a variety of techniques that I'm trying here within this workspace. Clearly this can just be fixed with the brush. Okay. And again, I've got the Option key on a PC, it's Alt, I think. I want to subtract from the selection right here. And if I zoom in even more, don't be shy about zooming in. Go back to the Refine Edge. Maybe that will help Photoshop understand where that edge really is. Okay, so it's really, really good with hair, especially strands of hair. I don't have a whole lot of strands of hair here, but just trying to give you the idea of the different edges that you use. So there, I've mucked it up again. I want to subtract and reduce my brush size. So play around with these settings and which brush that you use. And don't be shy about zooming in on areas like this is really weird here. I'm going to make sure the hardness is, around 50. So I want a soft edge here. Okay. Just play with plus or minus, add or subtract from the mask until you get it looking pretty darn good. Okay, so I'm going to finish this later, but you can see there are obviously areas that need to be fixed. So one really great way to improve the mask is to look at it in different modes. The black and white mode will tell you right away, oh, there's a section right here. I need to clean it up, Beautiful. Right there. I probably screwed that up. So feel free to change modes. What's the onion skin looking like? Still not a great, it's not a great tool for me. Maybe you guys like it better. And then before you say, hallelujah, I'm done, you want to go to the bottom of your properties panel and decontaminate the colors, which will fix the edges even more. I don't know if you noticed that, but look over in this area. I'm going to deselect it for a minute and then select it again. You can see it improves it a little bit. I like to output to a new layer with a layer mask. Click OK. And you can see I have a bunch of masks going on now. I'll reveal the color that I want to happen underneath. Okay. Now this is not finished. I still need to refine it, but the original mask I think is, I don't know which one it is. I think it's this one. But anyway, you see I've done this several times, so I have a lot of different masks to choose from. And I can go back in to edit it in a number of different ways. The easiest way is to double click on that thumbnail and bingo, you're back in the Select and Mask workspace. If I cancel out, you can also make sure you're on that thumbnail, but go back to the Select menu, Select and Mask brings you back. And the final way, there's always more than one way. Make sure you've selected the thumbnail and go to your Properties panel. Go to the bottom part, Refine, Select and Mask. And then, of course, when you're done doing all these maskings and manipulations, remember the final step is to save your file. and I always save the layers version. I might send a flattened version to the printer or whoever might need it, because flattened files without multiple layers are smaller, but I always love those layers. You just might need them sometime in the future, so I like to save them as PSD files as well. So I hope this tutorial was useful to you. If you have a favorite method of creating a mask in Photoshop, please tell us and share what your favorite techniques are. And meanwhile, have a great evening. Thanks again. Take care.